And I know that when people are concerned about the economy, people are concerned about, hey, how can I put food on the table to pay for my kids, to pay for myself? How can I keep this roof over my head? They're not thinking about those other issues, and the other issues really take a back seat. Do you think in this election particularly, Democrats took minorities and different demographics as a monolith, took them for granted a little bit?
100%. We just assumed that they would be there for us. And at the end of the day, they weren't. I mean, Donald Trump won with Hispanic men. You saw the Black vote go more for Donald Trump than previously has gone for any other Democratic presidential candidate. White women you see trending in that direction. He got more Jewish vote than traditionally is normal for the Democratic vote. And so he was able to knit together a coalition that, frankly, is very much what the Democratic coalition used to be. And somehow Democrats became the elitists in the party machine. And I do think that there was some resentment amongst the rank and file of feeling like they had been lied to about Joe Biden's mental acuity for the last however long. And then overnight, he's replaced with this woman who no one had elected, who no one had ever voted for. And you and I spoke exhaustively about all the reasons that she was the only person that made sense in that moment. But it doesn't mean that it didn't rub people the wrong way. And so I do feel like there is this sense among rank and file in the party that, these decisions are being made for them by nameless, faceless operatives in the Beltway who don't understand my problems, who don't understand what it is that I need, and who never came forward with real solutions for me and my family. So I think that for those people in the party who are going on cable news today and saying that this is about the country being racist and sexist and misogynistic, I'm not going to say that that doesn't exist in some form or fashion, but I do not think that that is why the election went the way that it did. And if we don't take away the actual lessons for how we got here, we're going to be here again in 4 years.
I think that's a really interesting point, because in 2016, when I talked to Democrats after Hillary Clinton's loss, there was this profound sense of sadness in the party. Today, the day after Donald Trump won in 2024, it feels different. It feels like there's a shift where there's more anger, there's more finger pointing, and there's this sense of, hey, we need a wake-up call. There needs to be a shakeup in the Democratic Party. So can you point to the moment where it went wrong? Was it Joe Biden not stepping out? Was there not being an open selection after he did eventually drop out? Who's to blame here, do you think?
Well, and I do think it's important to point out, I think there's a difference between this year and 2016. 2016, Hillary Clinton is a highly polarizing figure who I happen to respect and love, but who for decades was battered around by the Republicans at every level and was a little bit of a lightning rod herself. That said, had James Comey not done what he did 3 days before the election, I think that she could have and would have become the first female president of the United States. And I think that in 2016, there was a level of shock and trauma because what we had seen in the polls was so far from what the outcome ended up being. For last night, I think that, for anyone who's leaning about the polling, I think the polling was pretty dead on. I mean, the polling was very consistent all along that this thing was going to be a coin toss. And at the end, he won all these states, but he won them by 1 point, 2 points. It wasn't like massive margins in terms of points. So in any event, I think where things went wrong was Joe Biden implodes over the summer. She had 100 days to stand up a campaign. It was very little time for her to really introduce herself to the public, to define herself in the eyes of the public. I do think that the campaign made a mistake for thinking that they could just run out the clock after she got that boomlet of energy coming out of the convention at the end of August. I really truly think they thought they could just burn down the clock and cross the finish line. And it took her too long to come up with concrete policy proposals that matter to the groups that were going to decide this election. It took her too long to stand up a robust travel schedule, and it took her too long to start doing serious interviews. And then at the end, it felt good because it looked good. She's out with Bon Jovi. She's out with, Beyonce. She's on Saturday Night Live. But I think that to, again, everyday voters, that stuff almost plays the other way. It feels like you don't understand me. You're running around with celebrities. You're running around with millionaires and billionaires on private planes, and it doesn't connect. And so, I think that it was a confluence of events that no one could have predicted. having gone into the last several months that Biden would have imploded the way he did after that debate in June. But if you go back and look at everything, I think that history is going to hold Joe Biden accountable for not at the end of last year saying, you know what, I did what I said I was going to do. I steadied the country after COVID. I took the White House back from Donald Trump, and now I'm going to pass the baton. There should have been a robust primary process. That's when the queen rises to the top. That's when you see who does the best on the national stage. That forces you to come up with policy ideas, that forces you to do interviews. And, you know, we were deprived of that process because of Joe Biden and the people around him wanting to hold on to that personal power in the White House. And we lost last night as a result.